Hey, Sex Ed with DB listeners, DB here, and I need your help to make this podcast exactly what you want. We've put together a quick listener survey to find out what matters most to you, so we can cover the topics that you care about, find sponsors that match your interests, and create a podcast experience that's perfect for you. Plus, as a thank you, you could win a $100 gift card from Lion's Den. Your email is optional, so you can stay anonymous if you'd like. Just hit the link in the show notes and help us make Sex Ed with DB the best it can be for you.
She has like 150 life-size portraits of Adam Sandler. I'm like, what has she been painting all day, every day? Does she have a staff?
Hey everybody, welcome to Rom-Com Vom, a Sex Ed with DB podcast miniseries exploring popular rom-coms from the 90s and early aughts that gave us toxic messages about love and sex. Welcome back, Sex Ed with DB listeners, to another amazing episode of Rom-Com Vom. This week, I am joined by the gorgeous, the talented, my very good friend, Bree Vergis Appledorn. Hi, Bree.
Hello, Danielle. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so glad that you're here. I've been scheming to get you on the pod for years now, and I finally have found a good pop culture kind of moment for us to really rip a movie to shreds together to have you on.
I love it. I'm never used in the same sentence as pop culture. I'm not really relevant. I'm not good at that, but I'm very excited to be here chatting.
Just thrilled. How do we know each other? Maybe the listeners want to know. Bree was one of my first friends that I made in college at UC Berkeley. Go Bears. And she and I were in the same soror, and it was just, we've been pals for almost 15 years now, which is insanity.
A long time. Time.
We could have had a teenager by now if we adopted. As I suggested.
Yeah, fair.
In the beginning, in the first week. No. I'm just so happy that you're here. You're so funny. You're so silly. You're just fun to talk to. I'm just excited to get into this with you. Okay, so last week's teaser was this. Set on Oahu in Hawaii, Playboy veterinarian sets his heart on romancing an art teacher, but she has short-term memory loss. She can't remember anything that happened the day before. So every morning he has to woo her again and again and again. Her friends and family are very protective, and he must convince them that he's in it for love. We're talking about 50 First Dates today, and it's a very tricky and problematic portrayal of love and consent. Bree? Are you excited?
I'm something. Yeah, let's unpack it.
Let's unpack it. Okay. Well, so as a kid, right? Like when did you first watch this? Like, what did you think of the movie when you were younger? This came out in like 2004, so 20 years ago. And what did you think of the premise then? Did you find it romantic? Did you find it creepy? Like, what did you think?
Yeah, I was trying to remember this. So I was a big fan of The Wedding Singer growing up in the 90s. So in my head, I was like, oh, it's The Wedding Singer, but like on an island. Like it's basically the same movie, just a different movie. And so it kind of blurred together in my mind a bit. But I do remember 50 First Dates. I remembered that she had memory loss. And then I remembered the final 5 minutes. Like all I remember,
zero other memories.
No other memories. The ending, spoiler,
right.
They end up together. It's 4 or 5 years in the future,
right?
And I remember the happy ending, which like we could also unpack. Like that's all I really remembered.
Oh wow!
And then I think I probably saw it a couple times around when it came out, and then I hadn't seen it since, for better or for worse.
Wow. Yeah. And you have watched with fresh eyes, which we will get into. I'm very curious to hear your, kind of, you were like Lucy in that you also had memory loss in that you couldn't remember what was going on in this film. However, as I mentioned before we started recording, had this film on DVD for sure. Like this was a classic kind of Bezalel thing. I probably have seen this movie, I swear to God, over 50 times. Like it was on and I was reciting the lines while it was on.
That is wild. But a fun fact, because I cannot navigate Apple TV, I also now own 50 First Dates because instead of clicking rent, I clicked
you
buy.
own it.
So
Oh my God.
Maybe I'll join you. Maybe
we're gonna do a rewatch next year and see if there's anything that's different.
New developed. Yeah.
When I was a kid, I feel like I watched this, 20 years ago as an 11, 12-year-old and was like, yeah, no, this is romance. Like he loves her. He is like very much into her. They do have chemistry. Like Drew Barrymore is this like beautiful goddess. And, this is kind of like Charlie's Angels time. She's a hottie. She's been famous since she was a child, but I think this is a good era for her, the early 2000s.
Yes.
And yeah, I just remember feeling like, oh, like this is so funny. Like he's somehow a very attractive man to people. Like we got to talk about the opening sequence, by the way, which is just absurd. And yeah, I think like I didn't think that it was bad when I was a kid. I just thought like this is what true love is convincing someone, especially if they have this wild form of memory loss where their brain resets every night, that you want to be with them and that you love them and that you are going to do whatever it takes to get them.
Totally. The fact that I don't remember anything else is concerning to me because now my brain would store this movie in some area of the brain that is like filtering or putting asterisks on things or recognizing the problem. And instead it was just probably taken in as like, yep, like you said, this is normal. This is it. Yeah, this is what's gonna
happen. To see here. This is love. This is love.
Love.
I similar to you, I loved The Wedding Singer. I loved Adam Sandler movies in general. I loved Happy Gilmore. I loved Billy Madison. So this was just kind of another one of his shticks. And yeah, there are so many problems that we're going to talk about with it. It is very beautiful. It is a very beautiful movie. I think it is actually filmed on Oahu, if I were to guess. But yeah, there's so many characters in this movie. Like Sean, whatever his name is from the Lord of the Rings, is her brother who just like does steroids all the time and has a lisp. You're just like Sean Astin.
Yes, I did not place that's who it was. I'm so bad at actor names.
He has range, I will say. He can play Rudy, he can play fucking Sam from the Lord of the Rings, and he can play Lucy's drugged up brother who's doing steroids for body competitions.
The spectrum, the trifecta.
If you, listener, are like Brie and haven't seen this movie in 20 years, here is the setup. Adam Sandler's character Henry falls for Lucy, played by Drew Barrymore, who suffers from short-term memory loss. Every day she forgets who he is, and every day he must win her over again. On the surface, it's sweet, but there are some really big red flags when it comes to consent and ethical relationships. And so, why are we talking about this, right? As fun and quirky as this film is, 50 First Dates has some major consent issues at its deep core. And the question here is like, is it romantic or manipulating to keep pursuing someone who can't remember who you are?
The age-old question.
Help. Everyone's asking it. So in terms of the things that are most problematic, we're going to be talking about consent. We're going to be talking about Henry's persistence and this really pervasive, gross anti-trans narrative throughout the entire movie that was just incredibly surprising and so unnecessary.
So unnecessary.
Just what's the point?
It's never necessary, and it was extra unnecessary. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so let's start with the consent issues. Like, can someone truly consent to a relationship when they don't remember what's going on here? Like, what was your kind of take on like the way in which this was going on?
Yeah, I mean, my instinct to start was this woman deserves love. Like, we all deserve love. This is the situation that she's in. So I was trying to find the possible world where this was appropriate. But we've set the stage with a 3-minute montage of him repeatedly lying to various women, sleeping with them, and then leaving. So it's like we've established a pattern that you're probably not seeking appropriate consent with anybody that you are with.
You seem like a bad guy, is what it is.
Bad dude. You seem like a bad dude. So now my flag's up, and then we just come in hot with the rejection scenes. That's what really got me. So,
oh my gosh.
The plot being that on this first meet cute memory day, things go swimmingly, but then meet days 2, 3, 4, 10, 15, there was a lot of no. There was a lot of,
based on like a bet that he made with this man who works at the cafe. Like, we're literally like, they're playing with her fucking mind, and she is mentally ill. Like, she has a disability, literally. And he makes a bet with the guy who he calls so lovingly Tattoo Face. Quite racist. This man is Hawaiian, and that's a problem. And basically says, like, you know, I'll bet you $20 that I can get her to go out with me again. And it's all based on this like game where the viewer is like trying to feel like we're in on this. Like, it's funny that he keeps getting rejected over and over again. He pretends to not be able to read in order to get her attention. And then he kind of does all these things where, you know, her dad and brother are like, do me a favor, like, stay away from that cafe. Like, she has been through enough. She doesn't need your, you know, confusing, really shitty kind of lying behavior near her. And then he goes, okay, I'll stay away from the cafe, but I'm going to stop around the side of the road multiple times.
Times with no one around.
Sorry. Rob Schneider's character is just this just absolutely absurd person who is playing this Hawaiian man. And I didn't Google this, but listener, he's not Hawaiian. Okay. So there's a lot of like weird, like racist shit in here too. But yeah, like Henry is persistent. He definitely is persistent. And I feel like as young people, young women in particular, were kind of taught like, this is what love is. Like, that he is doing everything and anything he can to get to know this woman, and he loves her based on this one good interaction that they had at the cafe.
Yep. The chase, the pursuit, and then that he tries to find ins. Like, he tries to find these like points of vulnerability, many of which are lies of things he also enjoys, or, you know, ways to get this woman to think that it's kismet, it's serendipity. It's like, yes. How did you know that I love
make waffle houses?
Right. And it's like, oh, that is so awful. But in the moment, you're like, wow, he's really doing whatever it takes to get her love.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's really, and then there's just kind of a point where they decide that like he's her boyfriend. I don't know. I just feel like I've seen this movie so many times, and then all of a sudden he's her boyfriend.
Yes. And the let's not say irony, but the moment where she's like, I think you're more than my boyfriend. It was almost representative of like, I didn't really have a choice in this, but
right. She says, I
guess
you're right.
And like, because she doesn't remember is like definitely why the line is there. But
yeah.
So like, yeah, because you don't know, because you've kind of been trapped into this relationship. And you're waking up every day and basically having someone tell you, no, you definitely consented to this relationship yesterday. Like, that part really blew my mind.
Right. Yes. And like the whole concept of the videotape, right? Like, this is such an interesting thing because like technology, first of all, has very much changed over the course of 20 years. Fast forwarding to like the end when she gets the tape, and just immediately it cuts to the accident, like right after she watches it. She's like, oh, like she knows what that means right away. You're just like, okay, they're trying to like really skip over a lot here. And in the final tape, like before she like is in Alaska, kind of getting on this boat or whatever, like climbing out of her room to the top of the boat, the tape doesn't even mention that she has a daughter. It just mentions that they have married. I don't know. The whole thing is just like,
I mean,
very overwhelming.
Can we talk about the daughter situation?
Yes, please.
I mean, that part, there is a scene in the film where she is talking to Adam Sandler and is like, what, are we going to have a baby and I'm going to wake up every day and be terrified? Like, she describes in the film how nuts it would be to actually
She's like, I don't want to do that. Yeah.
And then we've skipped a 5-year period and the child's here. We have the child's
here.
And it's a happy ending and she hugs the child.
It's a lot. It feels very kidnappy to me. Just like
very kidnappy.
She's on this boat, literally. She's surrounded by water. Thank God her dad's there. That's the only kind of thing that feels okay.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, like, I don't know. There's this like consent moment where she goes to him and says, my plan is to erase you completely from my memory because I don't want to be doing this anymore. Like, I recognize what I'm doing to my dad and my brother. I won't do that to you. Sure, it's still kind of like based in not wanting to inconvenience him. Not ideal. But she has clarity on this, right? And they have this kind of like final night together. It feels very reminiscent. I don't know why I'm thinking of this right now, but of like Castaway. Like when he like comes back and like he and Helen Hunt are kind of like looking over all of like the newspaper clippings of like where he was, and then kind of they make out in the rain like in the same way. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Wow, you're good at movies.
I have some sort of sick memory when it comes to scenes. But yeah,
like, I've got Wilson. But okay, this is like at the end.
Basically at the end when she's like, oh shit, you were gone for 4 years. I have remarried. But like, here is all of like the materials that I have of you. And it's kind of similar where like Lucy in this movie is like, here's every memory that like I have of you. And in Lucy's case, she's like forgetting him. So they're throwing it in the fire and, you know, they have this dramatic kiss and she's like, can I have one last first kiss? And I don't know. It's just this sad thing where like he ends up respecting her ultimately and going on his trip. But because the dad fucking butts in and is like, she only sings when she sees you. And here's a little, and then I don't know.
Like,
it's just
here's a
lot.
Trigger, like something like literally. Yeah. It is a lot.
And then when she comes in the art studio and he's like, do you know who I am? And she's like, no. And then she shows him her art studio and he's just, how do you not know who he is? There's a million of him.
Hadn't it been 3 or 4 weeks? She has like 150 life-size portraits of Adam Sandler. I'm like, how has she been painting all day, every day? Did she have a staff? Yeah, I mean, what? It hadn't been years. It was very. That was a gap in the plot.
I mean, yeah, I'm just picturing her kind of like her eyes are just like keeping open. She's not even looking at. She's getting a vision like of him. She draws like the egghead one. Like, it's very funny, right? And clearly, I don't know. There's something here. We're meant to believe like she does love him. She does want to be with him. So like there is kind of this like challenging part where you're just wondering, oh, unfortunately, like his persistence like pays off here. Calling all aspiring sexual health professionals. This one is for you. If this isn't you, feel free to skip this ad. Okay, now that I'm talking to the real ones who want to make sexual health your full-time gig, I thought I'd share an exclusive offer for Sex Ed with DB listeners for my workshop, Building a Profitable Online Sexual Health Brand. In this workshop, you'll learn how to cultivate your sexual health brand, how to make relationships with other brands and sponsors in the space, and how to make a real living as a sexual health expert on the internet. And don't just take it from me. Here's a quote from the Sex Ed princess, Jill Listener, who took my workshop this past year. This workshop series was beyond what I thought it would be. I came out having gained 5,000 new followers on Instagram in less than 2 weeks. And I learned what really works in the content creation world in our sexual health space. I also gained confidence. Are you ready to get started? Email me at sexedwithdb@gmail.com and share that you listened to this ad. Let's do this.
And it is that weird, it's sort of reminiscent of when you're in a toxic relationship. I feel very lucky to be in a healthy relationship now, but when you're in that toxic relationship and you finally get the courage to leave that person, and then they kind of like flood you with the good or the apologies, or they try to kind of like change the past and get you to stay. it's this like, of course she kind of loves him, but
Right.
also there can be all of these other feelings, and the only person who gets to make the choice every day is him.
Pretty rough. We don't
Pretty
want
rough.
it in his hands. We want it in her hands. And we haven't really talked about this because how else would you navigate this? But like her dad and brother are just tricking her every single day. So you're just like, okay, what are we to do here? I don't know the answer, but it feels like not that.
Right. Like the alternative is also not ideal. And again, that's why I like really wanted to find the world in which she does deserve a partner just because she had this terrible accident before finding love.
I think the problem that I have with this is that like I do recognize that they have chemistry, and it's hard as a viewer to be like, oh, but it's so bad, but you guys are cute. Like when he does the forgetful Lucy, like I love that. I know every word of that song, like once again, because I've seen this film so many times. And he does love her, but it's creepy, it's unethical, it's strange. She like very clearly can't consent to this kind of relationship.
Yes, and that's why like it is nice to sit here and reflect on all the ways in which it's messed up. But I was watching that movie alone with my dog yesterday, smiling at the screen at different parts. When she brings him to the art gallery of 5,000 paintings, I'm like, yes! And, you know, he remembers, this is so sweet. You're going to end up together.
Yeah.
Even with all of my learned, lived experiences, knowledge, I'm still sitting there being like, yeah, no, I'm rooting for them.
Let's get into this anti-trans narrative that is completely unnecessary and just rampant throughout the entire film. What was like your kind of first, because again, I knew that this was a big part of the movie because I have seen this so many times, but you probably forgot about that or didn't even clock it, obviously, as like a 10, 12-year-old. But what were your thoughts of it now?
Yeah, I mean, one, it's just messed up and again, so unnecessary. But at the start, I was very much in this space of, like womanizer, again, that like intro plot of trying to trick all these women into sleeping with them. And so I'm like, oh, this is kind of like a early 2000s, like heteronormative, like just like sleeping around. And I just like all of a sudden out of left field, like the second scene, I think, the assistant at the zoo is like, I don't know if misgendered out the gate, but like something happens very early, and then they just keep hitting that joke
over and over and over again.
And I'm like, what is this? And this is the what do you call the like comedic relief character?
Right,
like,
exactly.
Not we've intentionally added this character to kind of just like
make fun
intermittently. I truly was so caught off guard.
Yes. And I think they keep going back and forth between being like, no, that's a woman. No, isn't that a man? No, that nobody knows. Like, and it just feels, and this character is also only given lines to make them like look like they are gross and they're just like awkward and they're propositioning like their boss for sex, and you know they're cracking their neck in this like disgusting way, and they get like hit by the wave when they're kind of talking about, you know, nothing beats a first kiss. Like very clearly we are made to think like this person is gross, this person is undesirable, we don't know if this is a man or a woman, that's nasty. And then there's the whole part on the beach where Lucy is catching up with all her friends and she's like, oh, you lost so much weight, girl. Like, and then she goes to, oh, I'm happy about your Jennifer, I'm so happy you got that gender reassignment surgery. I mean, Jonathan. And then we just see like a man who seems to just be maybe like an outwardly flamboyant man, but not a trans person. Like it just feels very early 2000s of like the need to kind of make fun of and make trans people the butt of the joke. And then there's the whole Rob Schneider character, right? Where he is kind of also the butt of the joke. He's kind of making, you know, these comments. I think the next part of this is the cringe corner. And I'll start with the Yikes Bikes award that I want to give is to Rob Schneider's character Ula when he finds out that Lucy forgets every day, and he says something along the lines of, she's the perfect girl for you because you can he literally says, give her the Waikiki sneaky between the cheeky. Like, once again, I don't have this written down. I've seen this movie so many times that I have just remembered that he says, give her the Waikiki sneaky between the cheeky. Like, he literally means assault her. Like, that's what he is saying with those words. And he's saying, like, she's the perfect girl for you. Like, she'll forget every single day. You don't need to call her. You don't need to worry. Like, this is so egregious. And yeah, that's my cringe corner moment. I'm wondering what do you think?
So bad. I mean, and his character throughout has all of these moments that now suggest that he is the character that's like, oh, that's not the love interest of the two. That's like the, you know, wild corner over here. But he was really saying the things that society was saying. Like in the wedding scene at the end, he's saying, you know, are you sure you want to end up married to someone you're not attracted to or not in love with, and blah blah blah. And then his partner's in the audience,
taking care of their 5 kids,
taking care of all of their children hanging off their body, like clearly taking care of this household as Rob Schneider's just like goofing off,
getting fucking shark bites.
And so all the things that he's saying are actually just like, yeah, you know, like, why don't you, oh wow, that's the dream. You're not going to be locked in this marriage, but this is, you know, this is true love. It's very different than the rest of the world. And again, as we're saying, the true love narrative is still the captive, kidnapped,
straight up
situation. Like, it's just pretty wild.
It is an outrageous plot, and like, it's probably one of the most successful rom-coms there is. I would love to hear your rating of the movie, and we have a rating of 1 to 5 VOMs on the VOM scale. So 1 VOM is that like mostly good, like we'll still watch it tomorrow. Things are like pretty good here, and 5 is like, oh, somebody kind of throw away all the DVDs and Blu-ray of this. And what would you say is your rating?
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, if it had stayed lighter, you know, at the beginning, Adam Sandler says, like, when she's finding out this woman has memory loss, he says, like, what is she? Is she some crazy woman? Like, we were falling into these normal expected patterns. Women are crazy. We sleeping around. Like, that could have stayed in the 1, 2. I have to bump it up because anytime an animal or a child is harmed in some way in the narrative, I have to count that against the movie. And in this case, this child is going to be so messed up. Like, I can't even begin to think how fucked up
the child that we just see for the last 1 minute of the film.
Who wakes up every day and is like, hey, mom, remember me? Like, I truly can't. So that's like bumping it up. But I can't give it 5 because, you know, she deserves love, maybe in some form. We could maybe work on the daily consent thing. So I'm going to come in at a 3.5, 4.
I think that's good. I think, I would also give it a 3.5. I think that, like, ultimately the premise is big yikes, but it is a sweet movie, and I feel like he does really love her, which, like, is nice. Like, that's nice.
It is nice.
But he doesn't have a normal ability to have a normal relationship with her. And because of that, he tricks her every day when they're starting to date.
As you gave it the 3.5 and described it, and I just really sat with it, I have.
Is it a 5?
It's a 4.5. It's a 4.5. This woman is trapped. I just
like,
think,
what if she wakes up and she's like, no, I don't want to be a part of this at all.
And
actually,
he's like, well, actually, you have a 5-year-old. You're on a boat in Antarctica, and like, you ask no one else. Please, you have no money. What if she can't remember her PIN number to her bank account? I mean, this is just. I'm gonna go 4.5.
This is quite dangerous. Okay, let's give us some final thoughts and maybe like a rewrite. If there's like, it feels obvious I don't know, like, what would we rewrite about this? Would she maybe forget once a year? Like, what's realistic here? What do you think?
If they could have met before, maybe had some foundation, I still think, you know, everyone has the right to choose and leave relationships at any time, regardless of marriage. So like, it would maybe help had they had the foundation before, but I don't think that's going to fix it. I think I would have needed, when they go see the doctor, some indication that her memory was coming back. Like there was some pathway to a world where she could remember and choose. Even just a glimmer of hope would have been nice, maybe to.
Like, what if instead, like when she broke up with him, then they did like a 3 years later kind of thing, and then they showed like her memory was coming back, and then they got back together at the end. Like that would actually be a better ending than just a child that she can't remember every day.
And then it would make sense why she had 1,000 paintings over the course of 3 years instead of the 3 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. That would make
this woman doesn't stop. And so many different mediums too. Did you see she had a sculpture of him too?
I didn't. I'll have to rewatch because I own it.
Oh my God. Okay. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to just this absurdity that is the rewatch of 50 First Dates. As a reminder, rate and review this episode if you really liked it. Send it to a pal who also loves Adam Sandler. And I'm going to tease the next episode for you right now. This story revolves around a boy who takes his dying father's advice and when he grows up will date only the embodiments of female physical perfection. But that all changes after he has an unexpected run-in with the self-help guru, Tony Robbins. Intrigued by this man's shallowness, Robbins hypnotizes him into seeing the beauty that exists even in the least physically appealing women. Bum, bum, bum. Thank you so much for.
I'm already triggered. I mean, that movie really, the teaser really brought me back to all of my teenage insecurities. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, and that's exactly why we're doing it next week.
Can't wait.
Bree, I love you. You're amazing. You're so funny, so smart. I'm so glad that I had you on the podcast. So thank you for being on today.
Thank you, Danielle. It was a pleasure.